Now guys, there's a lot of talk on the forums about when to kill your O2 sensors, run closed loop and that sort of thing. So I thought I'd ask Jesse about it and see what he had to say, given that he is someone who has a lot of experience in tuning motorcycles, not just Buells but everything else. So I hope you enjoy this little clip, and there's more to come, so stay tuned.
Can't just buy a little tool and expect and load someone else's map in that probably didn't do it right the first place.
And the other thing you got to take into account is altitude. Here
Right.
in Utah, where I live, we're at 4,250 feet. All right.
I wonder my bike's not pulling like it usually should.
Yeah. When you're at sea level, that thing probably pulls like a freight train. Up here,
Yeah.
it's dogged as hell.
Mm-hmm.
If someone made their base tune at my altitude, and they used timing that works for this altitude, and they used a VE table that works for this altitude, go to California now.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, you're going to have too much timing and not enough fuel, because at sea level, you need to give it fuel. As you climb an elevation, because the air's thinning out, you got to lean it out. And
Which is what your O2 sensor should be doing for you.
exactly. And
So what happens if you turn off closed loop?
if you turn off a narrowband, and let's say you go instead and start using a barometric pressure correction.
Right.
Awesome. I love barometric correction. Doesn't work worth a fucking shit when temperature changes, humidity changes, because now all of a sudden you have a what's called density altitude correction factor. Okay? Density altitude is what actually your engine's looking at. The air density. Altitude, it doesn't give a shit what altitude you're at.
Right.
Okay?
Which is what barometer's looking for.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, like, for instance, I've been out at Bonneville before. Bonneville is the same altitude I'm at, 4,200 feet, 4,300, right in there. And our density correction factor has been 900 feet. Okay? So all of a sudden, engines want a whole bunch more fuel.
Mm-hmm.
They want a whole bunch, let's see here, a whole lot less timing. And if you don't have a way to accomplish that, you're looking for a really good way to knock the bottom end out of your engine.
Right.
Alright? When I'm out racing at Bonneville, a lot of my corrections I make on the fly through my computer. I don't run a Buell ECU anymore. It can't keep up with what I'm trying to do.
There's not
here.
enough options.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to ride your street bike out there, you got an XB12, you got an 1125, whatever. You want to ride it out there? Cool. Let your O2 sensor still do its job. Because even though like an 1125, they factory come with an active barometric correction sensor on them. It sits right there, right in your crotch. Alright? They still have O2 sensors from the factory for a fucking reason. Alright? Barometric's only going to correct so far. If air density changes, that's why that thing has an O2 sensor front and rear. Because it's gonna, after a few ignition cycles where it's actually burned fuel, it's gone through the exhaust, the O2 sensors have sniffed it, it's had time to analyze the data, it's gonna go, oh shit, we need more fuel. And that's what they're gonna do. It's gonna help add some fuel. Your air fuel value is gonna change. That's okay. That's your ego correction, that exhaust gas oxygen correction factor. That's what your air fuel value is doing. It is compensating for something you don't know about.
Right. Which is why you should never turn that off.
Exactly. Yeah. Like on this bike, it's a little different. I run a wideband O2 sensor. Right here I have my Spartan 2 from 14.7. I've been running them for freaking years. I love them. This is an LSU 4.9 sensor. That is a wideband sensor. It's quite a bit bigger than a factory narrowband. But because of the application here, that's what I freaking need.
Right.
I'm running Boost. I have a lot of different shit going on. The old 1125 here, she's got a race ECU in her, a Barker exhaust. I haven't touched the tune once. It runs great with narrowbands. Alright, they're doing their job. They're making air fuel corrections.
It's not the most performance you could pull out of the bike.
No. If I want to pull more out of this bike, I've got a dyno I can go around the corner to. I can load it up. I can hook up to it with my FTDI cable and pull up either Tuner Pro RT or ECM Spy, whichever one I want to use, and I'll get more out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Narrow bands aren't limiting your horsepower. They've been around for fucking years.
Right. They have a job to do.
Yeah, there's guys that have ran them on full-blown drag cars. Guys out of Bonneville have ran them. Yeah, I get it. They only read 14.7 the most accurately, but they'll at least tell you, hey,
you're rich or you're lean.
Or you're lean.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you blew out a fucking intake seal. You should probably take care of that.
Right, because it'll start acting up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you all of a sudden get a wideband out of range, or your air fuel values just skyrocketing because it's trying to add fuel.
So your AFV kicks up to 120, you know you've got some problem.
You've got a leak somewhere.
Right.
You've got an intake leak, or, excuse me.
Which is why your rev will drop.
Exactly.
Because it's dumping fuel.
It's dumping fuel. It is
Right.
trying to compensate for this excess oxygen coming in from somewhere that is not monitored, that's not accounted for. Now you gotta remember, on these bikes factory, they run alpha in. They don't know what air density is.